Mark sat in his executive suite, surrounded by accolades and lavish furniture. The cityscape outside his window usually instilled pride, but today it felt empty. He stared at the employee satisfaction report on his desk, his brow furrowed with concern. How had things deteriorated so drastically without his notice? There was a shocking 15% drop in employee satisfaction for the third consecutive month at one of his offices in Virginia. Alongside this, there were numerous complaints of a toxic culture, favoritism, and potential racism. These red flags prompted TechCorp's CEO, Mark Johnson, to take drastic action. Disguising himself, he became a receptionist, determined to see his company through the eyes of his employees. The decision to go undercover as a receptionist was not an easy one for Mark. He was fully aware of the risks involved. If he was discovered, it could lead to a PR nightmare and shatter trust within the company. But as he donned the standard uniform and adjusted his fake mustache, a spark of hope ignited. This was his chance to uncover the truth and set things right. What would he learn by blending into the background of his own company? Only time would tell. His tailored suit and polished shoes, the symbols of his authority in the boardroom, were now replaced by a standard uniform and worn shoes. As he walked into the building he had once commanded from the top floor, he felt an odd mix of anticipation and fear. This was his company, his vision brought to life, but today he was just another face in the crowd. The weight of the telephone and the continuous tasks of answering calls and greeting visitors felt foreign to Mark. As he looked at his reflection in the lobby's glass doors, he saw not the confident CEO, but a man who appeared uncertain and out of place. No one met his gaze or recognized his presence, which struck him with a jolt of realization. His first task was to manage the busy front desk. As he handled phone calls and dealt with visitors, he overheard two senior managers chatting near the reception area. "Did you see the latest email about the new efficiency measures?" one asked. "Yeah, just what we needed. More work for less pay. The customer service team is already overworked." "Well, it's not our problem. Let HR handle the complaints. We've got more important things to focus on." The casual disregard for employee concerns hit Mark like a physical blow. Had he in any way supported this kind of attitude? As the managers walked away, still unaware of his true identity, Mark felt a growing discomfort in his stomach. Throughout the day, Mark struggled with the tasks he had always taken for granted. The switchboard seemed to have a mind of its own, and he struggled to keep up with the flow of visitors. But it wasn't just the physical challenges that weighed on him. It was the emotional toll of realizing how unconcerned the management had become. In the break room, as he refilled coffee mugs, he overheard his management team discussing the state of the company. Their conversation was filled with frustration and a dismissive attitude toward the low-level employees. One of them even went as far as insulting the customer service team and even throwing in a few curse words while at it. The others listened and laughed at the whole situation. Mark, on the other hand, felt a surge of shame and anger. These were the people he had trusted with his vision, expecting them to lead with integrity and empathy. Instead, they seemed deep in a culture of elitism and disregard for the staff who kept the company running. As the day ended, Mark found an unexpected ally in Dorothy, a seasoned receptionist who patiently showed him the ropes. During their break, she shared a knowing smile and said, "It's just a job, but don't expect anyone up there to notice us. To them, we're invisible." Her words hit Mark like a gut punch. He had always prided himself on running a company where every employee felt valued and their hard work was acknowledged. Dorothy's blunt observation painted a very different picture. By the end of his shift, Mark's body was tired from the demands of the job, but the real struggle was in his mind. As he removed his uniform and looked at himself, the face that stared back was tired, but more than that. It was the face of someone who had just been confronted with an uncomfortable truth. He had started this undercover assignment to gain insight into his company's operations and to find areas for improvement. Instead, He had uncovered an ugly culture of disrespect that cut to the core of the organization he had built. The next day, Mark continued his new role as a receptionist. As he settled into the position, he hoped for a different experience. The busy office environment was a stark contrast to his usual executive suite, and once again, he observed the employees around him quietly. Among the faces he recognized was Lynn, a key member of the Virginia management team. Mark had been told by his board members that she was a valuable asset. She was known for her efficiency and no-nonsense approach to business. However, as the day progressed, he began to notice a disturbing pattern in Lynn's behavior. Her interactions with lower-level employees were very different from the professional way she was mentioned to be. She spoke harshly, her words filled with insults, and her body language filled with an air of superiority that made Mark uncomfortable. The turning point came when Lynn marched up to Mark. Her eyes swept over the front desk, and she let out an annoyed sigh. "Is this seriously how you're handling things?" she said. "I've never seen such a disaster at the front desk. Papers everywhere, phones ringing off the hook, and you can't even answer them on time. No wonder this place is falling apart. It's because you people can't even do the basics right." You people? Mark thought to himself. What does that even mean? He felt a wave of anger as her words cut deep. He had always believed in building a respectful and positive work culture, but here was one of his senior managers tearing into him over his receptionist duties. The harshness in her tone and the way she belittled the role was hard to relate with her. As Lynn turned and walked away, Mark stood in disbelief. His heart clenched. Nearby, Henry, a kind-hearted worker, exchanged a look with a colleague and said, "Don't think too much about it. That's the way she acts." The weight of Henry's words hit Mark like a physical blow. Not only was Lynn's behavior unacceptable, but it was also a regular occurrence. The realization that this toxic culture had developed under his leadership filled him with a sense of betrayal and failure. Throughout the rest of the day, Mark found himself very aware of the interactions around him. He noticed the way some employees seemed to shrink into themselves when Lynn approached, while others adopted a defensive stance. The atmosphere of fear and resentment was in the air. Mark couldn't help but wonder how his team had missed these signs for so long. As he observed Lynn's interactions with other department heads, Mark began to see a pattern emerge. She was good at presenting a polished, professional image to those she deemed important, but she treated those she saw as beneath her with disrespect. This two-faced behavior was not only damaging to employee morale, but also to the overall productivity and success of the company. The stark contrast between Lynn's public persona and her true nature left Mark with a sense of betrayal. The senior teams trusted her with a lot of responsibilities. He believed her to be a reflection of the values he thought should be in the company. Now, he was forced to understand that his team's judgment had been very wrong. As the day ended, Mark couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. The issues in this office ran deeper than he initially thought. It wasn't just one manager's behavior. It was a systemic problem that had grown under his watch. But during his undercover stint, he discovered something unexpected. Data Drive's most valuable assets were hiding in plain sight. The bustling office floor was filled with employees working diligently, their faces showing both determination and strain. From his new vantage point at the reception desk, Mark began to notice patterns and people he had missed before. Two employees stood out: Abigail, a senior accountant, and Harry from the IT department. At first, they seemed unremarkable, just another part of the team. But as Mark observed them, he saw something exceptional in their daily actions. Abigail was often the first to arrive and the last to leave. Her dedication was clear as she focused intently on financial reports. One evening, as the office cleared out and the cleaning staff began their rounds, Mark overheard a conversation that struck him. "Abigail, you're still here?" a colleague asked, surprised. Abigail looked up and explained that she was just finishing quarterly reports. "They need to be perfect for the board meeting tomorrow. But it's your daughter's recital tonight, right?" A look of pain crossed Abigail's face, but she said that she would make it up to her this weekend. As the colleague left, Mark felt a pang of guilt. He had no idea of the sacrifices his lower-level employees were making, while many at the top were almost abusive. Harry, on the other hand, was a source of positivity in a stressful environment. Mark saw him move from desk to desk, solving technical issues with a patient smile. But it wasn't just his skills that impressed Mark. It was how Harry lifted everyone's spirits. One day, Mark saw a touching scene. A new intern was struggling with a broken computer, tears of frustration in her eyes. Harry approached her gently and said that they would figure it out together. For the next hour, Harry stayed with her. They ended up not only fixing the problem, but also taught the intern basic troubleshooting skills. His kindness was evident in every interaction. As the days passed, Mark saw Abigail and Harry as more than just employees. They were hidden pillars of DataDrive, showing the hard work, dedication, and compassion he wanted in his company. With this realization, Mark had a troubling thought. Why hadn't the team noticed their great qualities before? He saw that the problem was with the company structure he had created and his lack of involvement. One afternoon, Mark overheard Abigail talking to a coworker. "I have been passed over for promotion 3 times now," she said, sounding frustrated. "I work really hard, but it feels like you're invisible unless you're in the right social circle." Her words hit Mark hard. He had always believed that hard work should be rewarded, but maybe DataDrive's culture was stopping its best employees from getting ahead. Harry's situation was different, but just as concerning. Despite his expertise and valuable people skills, he stayed in a junior role, his potential untapped. Mark watched Harry handle a crisis that should have been a higher-level task, wondering how many other employees were just like him. Mark continued his undercover work for a week. At the end, he faced a deep realization. DataDrive was filled with hidden talents like Abigail and Harry, employees whose skills and dedication far exceeded their current roles. The amount of potential within his company was staggering. Now, Mark had to tackle a new challenge: how to create a culture that truly recognized and nurtured talent at all levels. How could he ensure that dedication and skill were rewarded, regardless of social connections or visibility? Mark decided to call an emergency meeting with his board and senior management team. He entered the boardroom as Mark Johnson, the CEO, with a clear and focused purpose. The team looked at him with a mix of surprise and curiosity, unaware of the full extent of what Mark had discovered. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," Mark began, his tone serious. "I want to address some serious issues that have come to light. Over the past week, I've been undercover within the company, and what I've seen has been both eye-opening and concerning." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. The senior managers exchanged uneasy glances. Mark continued, "Our company is facing a crisis. Employee satisfaction has dropped by 15%, and I found that our culture is not what we intended. There is widespread favoritism and a lack of recognition for hard work and talent." Lynn, one of the managers Mark had observed closely, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Mark noted her discomfort but remained focused on his message. "We need to address these issues head-on. I've seen extraordinary dedication from employees like Abigail and Harry, who are not receiving the recognition they deserve. Our current system is failing them, and it's failing the company." Mark's words were met with a mix of defensive responses and silence. Some managers tried to justify their actions, while others looked genuinely concerned. Mark knew that change would not come easily, but he was determined to see it through. The first step was to create a more transparent and fair system for promotions and recognition. Mark proposed a new framework where employee performance and contributions would be evaluated based on merit, not social connections. He also introduced regular feedback mechanisms to ensure that all employees had a voice and could report any issues they encountered. As Mark sat in his office, reflecting on the necessary changes, an unexpected knock on his door jolted him from his thoughts. It was Lynn. "Mr. Johnson," she began, her voice trembling, "there's something I need to confess. It's about the recent complaints and the toxic culture. Mark's heart raced. He had expected resistance, but not this level of fear. "Go on," he said, trying to maintain his composure. Lynn took a deep breath. "We've been manipulated. There's something you need to know about the complaints and the drop in employee satisfaction. It wasn't just internal issues. There was someone working against us, someone who has been feeding misinformation and stirring up trouble from the outside." Before Mark could respond, Lynn's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her face going pale. "Oh no," she announced. "It's happening again." She handed Mark her phone, showing him a video feed from a hidden security camera in the general office. The footage was disturbing. An unidentified figure in a black hoodie and mask was in the office. They were going to each employee's desk and threatening them, using their personal secrets to manipulate them. The figure seemed eerily familiar. "Who was that?" Mark asked, confused. Lynn shook her head. "I don't know, but they've been making people act badly. They've been threatening employees with their personal secrets, forcing them to mess things up or face exposure." Mark's mind raced. If Lynn was right, then the problems at Data Drive weren't just from internal issues. Someone was sabotaging the company from the outside. As Mark tried to understand this new information, another knock came at the door. A tall man in a suit entered, carrying a briefcase. Mark recognized him immediately. It was Oliver Grant, a well-known investigator who handled major fraud cases. "I'm here because I got an anonymous tip," Oliver said firmly. "I believe someone is sabotaging your company. The mastermind behind this chaos possesses detailed knowledge of your operations and is using that to wreak havoc." Oliver's words only intensified the enigma. Mark pondered recent company decisions and sensed a pattern emerging. But who held the motive and means to execute such a plot? Oliver opened a file and presented Mark with the evidence. "We've traced the sabotage back to a former employee who was dismissed under dubious circumstances last year. They've been nursing a grudge and leveraging their insider knowledge to disrupt your company." Mark felt a chill run down his spine. The former employee was a senior analyst with access to sensitive data and an intimate understanding of Data Drive's inner workings. Additionally, Oliver revealed, "We've uncovered a network of accomplices. They've been exploiting personal secrets to control and manipulate employees as part of a scheme to undermine your leadership and tarnish the company's reputation." Mark realized that Data Drive's issues ran far deeper than initially thought. The company was under attack in a manner designed to make the leadership appear incompetent, while the true source of the problem remained hidden. Mark, alongside Oliver, began investigating the real cause behind the turmoil. They discovered more evidence pointing to a former employee orchestrating the chaos with the help of others. Shockingly, the mastermind was someone Mark had deeply trusted. This former executive sought revenge against Mark and attempted to seize control of the company. This revelation sparked intense confrontations and legal battles to set things right. Mark took decisive action. Employees like Lynn had been complicit in the troubles and concealed the issues. They mistreated their colleagues and kept silent about the sabotage harming the company. Mark started by addressing Lynn and the others involved. He called them into meetings and presented evidence of their misconduct. Lynn was informed that she would face consequences for her cruelty and for concealing the ongoing sabotage. Mark ensured they understood that such behavior was unacceptable. Lynn and the others faced severe repercussions. They were suspended and required to undergo mandatory training on proper workplace conduct. Additionally, they had to apologize to their teams for the distress they caused. Mark wanted to ensure that everyone understood the grave consequences of rule-breaking and dishonesty. Conversely, Mark sought to reward those who had been honest and hardworking. Abigail and Harry stood out in this regard. Abigail, who had demonstrated exceptional dedication by working late, received a promotion and a raise. Her new position recognized her hard work and the sacrifices she had made. Harry, known for his helpfulness and positive attitude, was promoted to lead the IT team. He also received a salary increase and more influence in crucial decisions. Mark aimed to ensure that Harry's skills and positive demeanor were appropriately valued. To prevent future issues, Mark introduced new policies at DataDrive. These included regular meetings for employee feedback, improved channels for reporting problems, and more recognition for hard work. Mark wanted to be more present and visible, fostering a fair and supportive workplace where everyone felt valued and motivated. By implementing these changes, Mark aimed to address the problems and transform DataDrive into a better workplace. He sought to rebuild trust and ensure that everyone had the opportunity to succeed and be happy at work. Mark was committed to leading the company with integrity and fairness, fostering a positive environment where everyone could thrive together. As Mark gazed out at the city skyline, he felt the burden of recent days lifting. The crisis had tested him in unexpected ways, but had reinforced his commitment to lead DataDrive with renewed focus and a deeper understanding of the threats within his organization.